Hey, I'm David. I'm retired, but I like to do programming as a hobby. So something I've been looking at lately is working with Angular, which is a JavaScript front-end development framework, as well as Google's cloud services, so Firebase, and lately Google's IoT services. So something I want to do, this is talk about ourProbes. So ourProbes I developed, it's based on something I did about 10 years ago in the enterprise, where I had endpoints located around the enterprise where we get network capability measurements and bring them all into a central point. I want to do the same thing, but with IoT devices. So this is an example of an IoT device. This is a ESP32 development board. This one costs about $6, a very cheap way of getting endpoints deployed. The other ones I've been using is this one here. This is again ESP32 development board, but it comes in a nice case and has an Ethernet adapter, which seems to give more reliable measurements for network capability measurements. It costs about $30, so it's about the Cadillac of ESP32 devices. I'm going to use ESP32 devices. They're going to be talking to Google's IoT core, and then we'll use Google's pub/sub middleware to transfer data to and from Firestore database, and then I'll be using an Angular client that's going to display the data coming in from the devices, as well as managing the whole system.
You'll find this flow diagram in the ourProbes manual that's on the help page. I'm going to go through the following flows: how you create a device, how you create and manage probes, how you assign probes to devices, and then the next video I'll go through how you do data analysis and some of the administration functions. When you first go to ourProbes, you go to ourProbes.com, or if you've made a copy of this for yourself, it'll be whatever URL you set up. When you initially go in, it's going to take you to the logon screen, because this is an administrative application. It expects everyone to have some access to the system to use it, so there's no splash screen. One thing there is available to everyone is the help screen. Be aware that there's a manual available, so if you click on that, they'll take you to the PDF manual for this. As well, there's going to be video tutorials. I've got one in there at the moment, but as I finish these two tutorials, I'll be adding to the video tutorials available for the overview of the system. One thing else to be aware of is the development blog under LupinCorp. If I go open up ourProbes, there's about 19 videos that goes through the development process. Has a lot more details on sort of the back end and the architectural decisions I made as I developed this. So let's go back to ourProbes, and the first thing we're going to do is log in. So I'm going to do login. I'm going to log in using my Google account. And I'll be following through much of the workflow in the manual. So the first thing we're going to look at is managing devices. So I'll click on devices, and you can see shows the current devices, and you can go through and create a new device. If you click on one of the existing devices, you can edit that device, and you can also delete the device. So let's look at that. So I'm going to create a new device. I have a device 04 I want to set up, so I'll put in 4. This is a device that I carry around in my shoulder bag, so I'll just put that down. And location, so normally this is for say you've got devices in a big room like a data center. You may want to say that it's in server X, or on the left side of the server room, or something like that, or at Joe's desk. I'm just going to say also the type of device it is. This helps set up the config file. This device is an ESP32 gateway from Olimex, but you can select one of these other devices as well. Governance seconds is how often the probes on the device run. So by default, governance seconds are set up so that they don't run too frequently. So 300 seconds is about 5 minutes. So that's the lowest value you can use. So this would mean that the probes on the device run once every 5 minutes, but you can have a higher value than that. You don't want them running more frequently, because it can look like a DOS attack if you keep pounding the same network target with the same probe all the time. Other flags to set: IoT communications allowed, so this gets passed on to Google's Cloud IoT as the communication flag. So if this is turned off, then Cloud IoT will not allow communications with that device. That might be useful. Say the device gets compromised, you don't want Cloud IoT even talking to it, so you can turn it off. Usually we want to run the probes on the device, but sometimes while you're doing testing you may turn probes off for a while. The next section you fill in, usually only when you create it, is the public keys. Look at the other video I have on provisioning a new device on how you get these keys, but I've got the keys set up, so let's copy these keys in. It does some checking on the format of the keys as you enter them in the form. Just be aware that also in the back end, when Cloud IoT gets these keys, it'll also be checking them to make sure they're valid. That reduces the processing the device has to do to create a Java Web Token. Finally, location. So you can set a location for the device. By default it's set to be 00, so on the equator somewhere. So let's pretend I'm going to put it in, let's put it in Durham. So that's been set. I should be able to create the device. So it's just created the device. It also flips over into update mode, and you see the changes here as location gets collapsed and keys gets collapsed, because we usually don't want to update those on every update. But what we may want to do is assign probes. So here's a full list of all the probes that are available. So these are network tests that can be performed, and maybe I want to do the ourDARS test on this. I may also want to check Kiwi Corner Dairy is responding. So I've got a couple of probes assigned now to this, and now our device is set up. The other thing I may want to do after I've created a device is get a copy of a config.py file for that device, which is used in the provisioning. Again, look at the provisioning video for more details on how this is used, but by clicking on that link it will download a config.py for that device, which you can take and then move on to the device to configure it. If I click here, it'll take me back to the device list, and we see device 4 is shown there. Other things we can do is we can just go in by clicking on the device, so just where we were before in update mode, and we can also delete the device. So if I click on delete device, it takes me in, and I have a delete button where I can delete the device. I'm not going to do that. So next let's look at how we manage probes. So I've gone back to my menu in the home screen. Just a note on the home screen, this shows you a map based on you as a user's default location. So I see I've got 3 probes around me, and you can see that I've also shows the D04 probe down in Durham. Now I've added it to the map, and this is another easy way of getting to the devices. Okay, so for probes, same process as devices. We go to the probes menu. This gives us a list of probes that are available at the moment, a way to create a new probe, and ways to delete probes. One note about probes: once a probe is used, and even if it's assigned to a device, it won't allow you to update many of the properties of the probe. In many cases, if you want to delete a probe and there's data out there, the only way you can do that is logically delete it, which takes it out of the active probes, and create another probe that you can even call the same name but may have slightly different properties, or if a target changes, change that. So let's have a look at how we create a probe. So I'm going to create a new probe, so it needs a name. I'm going to call this one which is another name of another URL I've got. Okay, so this is going to be a web probe. So we need to put in a URL that takes us to that that particular location. So let's type in our checklists. Okay, so this is our checklists page. This is a site I'm going to redo. But what I want to do is check whether this site comes up, and also I'm going to look for checklist to be in the title. So first I'm going to get our checklists URL that works. So I'll put that in as the network target. I'm going to say this is a web page probe, and I'm going to look for something in the first 1,000 bytes. So checklist looks like a good thing to look for as a string. If we see that, then we're pretty sure that we're on that page, and that's all we do to create it. And just like in our devices, once you create it, it goes into update mode. If I go down through and look at all my probes now, I see checklist as available probe. If I click on that, then all the information there is available to update. And again, once this probe is in use, then I won't be able to update things like the target, the type, or the string. There are other probe types. So other ones is a Bing. So this basically uses ICMP of different lengths to get what the available bandwidth and round trip latency is to a network target. And Ping, which is just kind of a simpler one, it does a small ICMP echo just to find what the round trip latency is. So those are the different types of probes you can create, and once a probe is created, it can be assigned to a device, just like I showed you in the device page. I'll give you an example of where I can't delete a probe. This one's in use, and I get a pop-up message saying I can't delete it. So I'm going to split this video up at this point. So in the next video, I'm going to go through the data analysis, which will take the majority of the video. Then I'll look at some of the more administrative functions. So the My Profile, so this is where you set your particular default location where you want the map to show by default. If you're an administrator, the User Management function. We've seen the Help page, there's an About box, and then the Log Out. So really just these three functions here I'll look at in the next video.